With that, I do want to say welcome to Rizèl. Scarlett. Rizèl is a GitHub developer advocate, and she's here today to talk to us about Copilot. Welcome, Rizèl. Let's give a big welcome in the chat, some applause in the chat for Rizèl. So, thank you, and I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Hey, and I see the welcomes in the chat. All right, I will jump straight into it. Let me switch over my tab so that I'm actually looking at my slides. Like Michael mentioned, we are going to be talking about Copilot today, specifically how we can level up with Copilot. I like to have things be a little bit more interactive. That way, it's not like I'm talking at you. So I would love to see in the chat some interaction when I ask a few questions. The first one is going to be basically the other day I wrote this tweet that says, wrote this tweet with Copilot. I want to know if you think it's true or false that I actually wrote it with Copilot, or did I just like manually type it out? I'm going to check the chat really quickly to see what y'all think. Put your true or falses in there. Okay, Kayla says true. All right, cool. It says send to Copilot. Cool. We got some very observant people. True. Okay, cool. Lots of people think it's true. My next question to you all is going to be another true or false. Here's a statement that says you can use GitHub Copilot to cultivate your engineering career at any level. Do you think that's true? Do you think that's false? Send tweet Copilot makes me think it's true. Yeah, that was a little bit of a hint. Definitely true. Okay, so we don't have any skeptics in the building that are like, Rizèl, you're lying. All right. True. Cool. Awesome. All right, so y'all think it's true. This is, oh, someone said no. I like that. Thank you. All right, so let's see what happens in the rest of this talk. But I'm going to give you all a little bit of a rundown of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about what is GitHub Copilot if there are people here who aren't sure what it is, which is totally fair. I'm going to talk about how to use it. We're going to explore if it can level up your career. Like, is that true or false for real? I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's personally benefited me, and then we're going to explore if we can write tweets with Copilot. I guess that little hint might have given it away, but not really. All right, so before I do that, I'll talk about who I am. So my name is Rizèl. I am a developer advocate at GitHub. It's actually my 1 year today, so yay. Also, prior to being a developer advocate, I was a software engineer for about 3 years. And I'm currently an advisor, and I was a director at G-Code, which is a nonprofit that introduces women of color and non-binary people of color to web development. So I'm super passionate, if I hope you can tell, about empowering people through code and technology. But I'm also passionate, or some may say addicted, to social media, specifically Twitter. I'm really, really addicted to Twitter. So if you're interested, you could follow me at Black Girl Bites on Twitter. I'm also at Black Girl Bites on other social media platforms like Instagram and Dev.to and Hashnode. I consider those social media platforms because I blog a lot. And then on Twitch, I'm Black Girl Bites 1 because I locked myself out of my account, unfortunately. But enough about me. Let's get back to Copilot. Basically, if you're not sure what Copilot is, it's an AI peer programmer that helps you write code faster with less work. And I do want to say it's not magic. When Copilot first came out, and even before I started working at GitHub, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, Copilot's going to take our jobs. It's a Copilot, not an autopilot. It's not like a sentient being or anything. It can't read my mind. It's not always going to spit out perfectly well-written, up-to-date code. I'm just saying that honestly to y'all because I like to be honest and authentic. Sometimes it's using API version 1 when we're on version 3 or 2. So it happens, but we're working to continue to improve it over time. And if you're still having struggles envisioning Copilot because you haven't gotten a chance to try it out, I like to think of it as Smart Compose. or similar to Smart Compose, which is a feature within like Google's products. They have it in Gmail and Google Doc that when you start typing, predictive text happens. Here's an example in the screenshot below where someone's typing an email about Taco Tuesday to Jacqueline. And they say, hey, Jacqueline, haven't seen you in a while. And Smart Compose is learning from that person's writing style and saying, I think you're about to say, and I hope you're doing well. So the author can go ahead and just press tab and it'll autofill it and make writing an email even faster. It's exactly the same with Copilot. It's just in code. So let's talk about under the hood. So under the hood, GitHub Copilot's drawing context from comments and code, and it's suggesting individual lines and whole functions instantly. And it's actually being powered by OpenAI's Codex. And I'll admit to y'all, I was saying this line a lot to people for months, and I didn't know what OpenAI Codex was. I was just like, it's powered by OpenAI Codex. So when I wrote this talk, which was a couple months back, I was like, wait a minute, let me just figure out what OpenAI Codex is. So I started with OpenAI. I already knew what that was, but if you don't, it's a research lab, an AI research lab. Now, the Codex part is that OpenAI, that research lab, developed a machine learning model, and they named it Codex. And Codex basically translates natural language into code. So let's talk a little bit about OpenAI Codex even more. OpenAI Codex is a version of GPT-3. That stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3. And what that does is it uses deep learning to produce human-like text. Actually, a lot of you probably have used GPT-3 in your other applications, or you've used applications that are using GPT-3, I mean to say. For example, Duolingo. For my polyglots out there, you probably use Duolingo to like help you level up on your Spanish or your French. Duolingo is using GPT-3 for grammar correction. So what they did is they took GPT-3 and they fine-tuned it for programming tasks. So I wanted to go even deeper. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Let me figure out if I can actually use the tool. So to the host of this session, I apologize. I'm going to do a lot of back and forth screen sharing, so I'm going to stop sharing and then share again. I apologize. But what we're going to do is we're going to explore OpenAI Codex right now once I get that screen shared. Or maybe I should just share my entire window so I won't have to do this. Let's see. Maybe not. I'm sharing my screen now. Let me know. Okay, cool. Y'all can see it. Perfect. So here is beta.openai.com, which is a place where you can play around with the OpenAI API. They have some documentation here that if you wanted to build your own application that was using it, you can go ahead and get started. But what I used, or what I was looking at, was some of the examples they had, and it was really mind-blowing. They have examples where you can summarize difficult text that a second grader can understand it, like in a way a second grader can understand it. They have something that can convert movie titles into emojis, moods to colors, and like, of course, like actual coding things like JavaScript to Python, or just there was one that I thought was really, really cool. I've lost it, but that's besides the point. Basically, we're gonna go ahead and try some of these out, and I'll look at the chat and interact with y'all a little bit. So get ready to start typing. So we're going to do the movie title to emoji converter because I think it's really fun. They already gave us some examples here where for Back to the Future, it's generated a young man, an old man, a car, and a clock. For Batman, it's generated a man in the suit and an actual bat. And then for Transformers, it's generated a car and a robot. Let's see what it generates for Star Wars. Okay, cool. So it generated a star and then a rocket ship. I'm going to think of a couple movies, but while I'm thinking of them and adding them, feel free to add some movies in the chat that you want me to try out as well, and I'll try those out after mine. So let's try out Devil Wears Prada. I think that might show something interesting. Let's see. It gave us a little devil emoji and lipstick, pretty accurate. I'm gonna go ahead and try out maybe like Princess Diaries. I don't know. Y'all can see I'm doing a couple girly movies. So we got a princess and a notebook. I think that's accurate too. Let me check the chat to see if there's any ones that you all want to try out. Someone said that's really neat. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Let's do that. And The Godfather and Nope and Spirited Away. Let's try these. I'm excited. All right. Oh, could you all see my screen? Was I even sharing the right one? I am, from what I see, I wasn't sharing the right one. Let me stop sharing one more time. I apologize. Y'all couldn't even see the amazingness. And I'll just share my whole window. Gotcha. Sorry about that. You're going to see me, and then I'll switch it over to here. Here's where I was looking. I didn't know y'all couldn't see, but when I wrote Devil Wears Prada, it generated a devil emoji and lipstick. And then after that, it generated Princess Diary. For Princess Diaries, it generated a princess emoji and a notebook. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try out The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm nervous. I wonder if it will be able to do this. Let's see. Oh, there we go. It gave us a lion, it gave us a snowman, and it gave us a door for that wardrobe. I think one person said The Godfather. Let's try that out so I don't have to switch between tabs too many times. And there we have praying hands, and it looks like a father, a godfather, and a kid. And then someone else, I know I saw them right. They wanted to try out Nope. Try that. Oh, okay, cool. And it gave us the stop sign. I thought that wasn't gonna work. So I think that's enough examples, but I hope you thought that was cool. I'm actually gonna try out another example they have in here. So what I want to try out is to do the mood to color generator. So what this does is basically you give a description of like a color and it generates the CSS hex code for you. So right now it already has the example of a blue sky at dusk. So I'm going to go ahead and see what that background color hex code generates. So I'll press submit and it gives us this hex color. I don't memorize them, so I'm going to go ahead and just throw it into Google and see what it gives us. And it gave us a blue. So that's what it interprets as a blue sky at dusk. I'll try out a couple more, and then y'all can feel free to type in ones that you want to try out too. But make sure it's like more specific. Don't say like the color of a desk, because desk could be white, they could be black, they could be brown. So I'm going to try out like a basketball. Like we know those are normally orange. So let's generate it. And we have this. Let's see what we get here. To paste. All right, we got an orange, accurate codex. I see you. And then I'll try out, what about a sunflower? Those are normally like yellow, right? Now press submit. And here we go. Moment of truth. And we have yellow. So as you all can see, not doctored. I didn't force this to happen, but this is what this is what Copilot's being powered by. Let me check out basketball. Never thought of that. Sorry that you all have to just look through. Oh, Ghostbusters. Let's do Ghostbusters. And then I'll go back to the movie one, and then I will show y'all a code example. I do want to see what Ghostbusters looks like. Ghostbusters. See. All right, cool. It gave us a ghost, it gave us a stop sign, and then it gave us a broom. I think that looks pretty accurate to me. So let's go ahead and switch over to like actual code examples. So if I wrote here, write a comment that says write a binary search algorithm, let's see what happens. I press submit. There we go. It even continued to write more comments for me. It said, write a binary search algorithm given a sorted array, return the index of the element, and then it generated that function for me. What if I said another one like write a bubble sort algorithm. And what if I specified what language I wanted it to be in? Maybe I should say in Python. There we go. I'm not a Pythonista, but I think that looks like Python to me. And it even gave us like arguments and an array that we can pass into this function. Um, so I hope that gives you more context on what Copilot's being powered by and how it's working. All right. So we checked that out. If y'all want to play around with that yourselves, go ahead and go to beta.openai.com/examples. And I will move on to the next one. Cool. So let's talk about the various features that are within Copilot. Predictive code, that's like the most common one that y'all have been seeing and the one that I've talked about the most so far. Basically, in this example, I wrote a comment, I started writing my function, and Copilot was like, girl, I know exactly what you want to write. And it started giving me a suggestion. And by just me pressing tab, I can have a whole function filled out for me without me having to type it out. Another feature that people don't know about, and I honestly didn't know about, is you can view more suggestions than just the initial suggestion it gave you. At one point, I will admit that Copilot was a little bit annoying. It kept giving me suggestions that were close, but I didn't care for them, or they weren't exactly what I wanted. So I kind of just turned it off. I was like, I'm done here. And I was talking to a product manager, and I was like, have y'all ever thought of like allowing us to see other suggestions? And he was like, that exists. I was like, oh, my bad. And then he told me that if you just hover over that initial suggestion, it'll show you this panel where you can see the next suggestion that it was going to give you, previous suggestions, or you can press open GitHub Copilot and it'll open a new tab for you that will show you all the possible suggestions that it'll give you. I really like that feature because it allows me to like get my brain moving a little bit. I'm like, oh, I could have solved it this way or that way. Like I really like that. And I think it's changed the way that I view Copilot. I also want to show y'all this. So there is an experimental emphasis on the experimental extension that comes complementary with Copilot, and it is called Copilot Labs. So the GitHub Next team developed this just for experimentation, but it's really cool. It comes with this feature where it allows you to translate code from one programming language to another. So basically here, I wrote some JavaScript. It's that same binary search algorithm. I don't know why I like that example, but it's the same one. I highlighted that code snippet, and then I told Copilot Labs, I want to translate this into Python. And it was able to spit out Python for me. And it looks pretty accurate, dead on, right? Then there also has an explanation feature where you can highlight small snippets of code and get an explanation of what's going on. So here I highlighted it, I clicked explain code, and it spit out some results for me. So I'm gonna zoom in on that because it looks a little small. But here I'll read a few of it. It says the code above does the following, explained in English. Declare two variables, low and high, which will be used to represent the start and end of the search. Initialize low to 0 and high to the length of array -1, while low is less than or equal to high, do the following. Y'all get the deal. I don't have to read it all out, but it's basically telling me step by step what's going on in this code snippet, which I think is super helpful if you are new to a code base and you see some code that you're like, I have no clue what's going on there. It'll give you a little bit of more context and an explanation of why someone wrote that. All right. So if you're like, girl, I want to use this, it seems cool. It's available in Visual Studio Code, JetBrains, and NeoVim. So if you did want to install it, you can install it in these three editors. I also want to let y'all know that we do have a fail-safe or a filter that if you didn't want any suggestions matching public code because you feel strongly about it, you can block it. There's a very small percentage of public code that matches things that Copilot suggests. Like I think I don't want to say the wrong number, but I think it was 1%. But if you want to make sure it's 0% and like you never see any public code that's being suggested, you can use this feature and block it. All right. So maybe you're watching this and you're like, these features are cool, but remember the title of your talk is Level Up with Copilot. How would this be useful for me? How can I level up with Copilot? So I'm gonna ask y'all in the chat, and I'll stop sharing for a quick second. Sorry to the host. I know I'm annoying with this sharing back and forth, but I want to ask y'all, what are some goals you have as a software engineer? And I'll show you my goals, and then you can tell me some of yours. So as long as I've been a software engineer and a developer advocate, my goals have always been to code faster and cleaner. I want to like pick up an issue, ticket, story, whatever you call it, on your team, and I want to be able to solve it really quickly, and people look at the code and they're like, dang, Rizèl is the smartest engineer I've ever seen. Like she finished this so fast and it's readable, it makes sense, this is the cleanest code I ever seen. I also want to be able to write good documentation that if I were to leave a company, people will know what's going on, or be able to communicate well with everybody. I want to be a good mentor and mentee because I believe that helps with gaining seniority and just being an overall good team member. And I also want to be able to gain understanding for new concepts quickly. As we know, tech changes fast. And then even more as a developer advocate, I feel the pressure to be familiar with these new technologies, but have less time to focus on deeply on each one. So those are my 4 goals, and I want to see yours. I'm gonna stop sharing so you don't see the picture in a picture a million times. Let's see what y'all got. Ship more features. All of those happen to be your goals as well. Okay, someone gets it. This will help with. I have to deal with oddball offs. Okay, that's a different thing. NeoVim. Gain understanding of concepts quickly is definitely a goal for me. Cool. I think y'all agree with me. Y'all feel the same pains and motivations that I do. It's just like, yeah, we want to be able to code faster. We want to be able to gain these concepts quickly because there's a lot to learn. So I'm gonna go back to sharing. Sorry about this, y'all. Okay, cool, perfect. So to continue, I believe that Copilot continues to help me do those things, right? Like it has helped me and it continues to help me code faster and cleaner, write good documentation, be a better mentor and mentee, and gain context for new concepts very quickly. So let's talk about how it does that. And I hope y'all can't hear the background noise. I live near a train, so I apologize for that. So in terms of coding faster and cleaner, Copilot is so good at patterns. Like I really feel like that's Copilot's strength. It recognizes and follows patterns really well. So if you're using an API or creating an API or writing a unit test, after you write like the first function, Copilot's like, okay, I get it. You did a get request. Now here's how you would probably want to write the post request, or you just tested this to expect this value. Here's how you probably want to do this test. It's really like I've really seen that it was quality for that. It's also really good for syntax, right? I spend a lot of time trying to remember syntax. Like I'll spend like maybe 30 minutes in a regex playground, or maybe looking on Stack Overflow, trying to match these strings and figure out if this is the correct regex for something. Or embarrassingly, for some reason, I always forget how to map an array. I literally map an array so many times and I still like forget the syntax for it. So it reduces that time for me to go Google and figure it out. And instead, it's like, I know the syntax for you, girl. I got you. And then also comments. To get the best results from Copilot, you need to write clear, understandable comments. And I think that's actually really good, right? Because if you write the clear, understandable comments, GitHub Copilot understands it and it writes good code for you. But also, your teammates or whoever's looking at your code, if an AI can understand your code, then that means your teammates will, because you wrote that really clear comment of what's going on and why it's happening in your code base or in your code snippet. So I'll talk about my personal experience. I shared this talk with my friends and they were like, Rizèl, don't say this, but they're not software engineers. So I think y'all will understand me. I feel like I write really messy code. Ever since I learned to code in 2018, I normally write like really messy code and then I'll like delete it and try to refactor it so people don't think I'm a mad scientist. But I am a little bit disorganized, to be honest. So let me not skip to that slide yet. But basically, when I joined the GitHub team, GitHub told me, hey, we're going to partner with the Visual Studio Code team at Microsoft. Their DevRel team wants us to help them develop an extension that basically publishes or deploys repositories on GitHub pages. And I was like, cool. And they're like, we want you to do it. And I was like, oh no, now everyone will see like how crazy my code is. Imposter syndrome was getting to me. I was like, yikes. But to my surprise, after I finished creating the extension, which I've never made a VS Code extension before, one of the principal developer advocates at Microsoft messaged me to say, just got this and here are my thoughts. Code is gorgeous, so easy to read and well commented. Love it. While I'll take a little bit of credit for it, I really think that Copilot helped me to write that clean code and those good comments, because I never wrote a VS Code extension before. I really wasn't familiar with the API, but by writing the comments, I was able to finish it up pretty quickly. And like he said, he thought it was gorgeous, so I was like, yay. So my trick, y'all, because I understand sometimes Copilot is in the way of your flow. Sometimes I turn it off when I'm laying down that initial structure of my project, and then I turn it back on once I have a pattern going and I just want to speed up a little bit more. So just a trick for y'all. And I'll show you all how it's really good at these patterns and at regex and at comments. So here's an example. I wrote a blog post about Copilot, and this person, Mike Dev, shared his example with me. He said, I'm using GitHub Copilot. It helps with translations of simple strings and full sentences. This was mind-blowing to me. I never seen anyone do this. He's making an array that has like translations of the words answer, question, and date, and it's translating it to like Japanese and French and all that, and Spanish. And I'm like, what? This is wild. Copilot just already knows once he writes in the language code or whatever, it already knows how to translate those, which I thought was really cool. Here's another example. We have Liron, who works at a security company, and he's doing a little bit of refactoring, and Copilot is able to pick up on the patterns that he has going on in his code base and in his file, and it's able to suggest how he should refactor it, and he found it helpful. And then here's an example of regex, which I think I will click watch on Twitter so it'll be a little bit bigger for y'all. Make it big. Basically, here this person is writing a string, and they write a comment that says remove the white space from text, and Copilot is able to pick up on that, and there we go. It correctly wrote some regex to remove the white space from the text. I'll let it run one more time so you guys can watch it again, or so you all. But I think that's pretty amazing, right? Let's look at another example. Oh, maybe y'all can't see it. Hold on. Yeah, y'all can't see it. Give me a second. Oh gosh. So much different tabs to share. Share screen. And I will share this one. And let me double check that you can see it. Cool. Sorry, I was talking to y'all and y'all couldn't see it at all. But here it is. They wrote a string that says hola. And I can't speak Spanish, so don't want to mess it up. But then they wrote a comment that says remove white space from text. It generates the code for that. And then we can see that they printed out in their console that same string, but with no white space in it. And cool. All right, I will, hopefully y'all saw it this time, and I will stop sharing and switch it back. So many things to share. Okay, you're most excited about using it for regex, but trust me, there's more. All right, so we have the regex example that we saw. Okay, here's another example where we've used it to do some shell scripting, right? So in Bash, there's this comment that says list all the Python source files which are more than one. Wow, now my brain is blanking, but just don't judge me. It contains the word Copilot, and there it goes. It basically wrote the rest of that line for it, and I think that's awesome. That not only can it do like JavaScript or Python or whatever, it could also help you out with some shell scripting. This is actually my favorite example, one of my favorite examples about it just being really good at translating things. I think that code is so American English centric, right? Like even for British and Canadian speakers, the word color in CSS has to be COLOR and not without the U, right? Which can kind of sometimes trip people up. We write typos and we make typos every day. And now we have to remember code and syntax. And now we also have to remember American English. So when I was actually showing off Copilot to somebody, one of my friends named Ramon, he was like, wait, do you think if you wrote a comment in Spanish that Copilot would be able to understand it? And I was like, I don't know, let's try. And I wrote, like, I don't even know Spanish, first of all. So it kind of just finished most of it. I told him, like, I was like, tell me something in Spanish. And he told me importar, and that's all I wrote. And then Copilot wrote the rest of this comment, which essentially translates to import the necessary like libraries that you need for this program. And then the next line, Copilot suggested that I import Tweepy, which is the exact library that I needed. My mind was blown. I would just say that. All right. And here's another one I want to show. There's so many examples in this. I just think Copilot's so cool. So here's another example of it being helpful for different languages. So what's going to happen in this video that I found is someone created an extension where you can speak, where you could do a voice assisted coding. So they basically speak out their comments. They're speaking in Japanese, and then Copilot is able to actually print out or type out the code that's needed. So let's see it happen. If this could be removed. Ooh. Let's see. Maybe I will click it, stop sharing, and then share again for y'all. So sorry. Stop share and share one more time. Chrome tab. Cool.
카카오 아이가 듣고 있습니다. 특정 연도의 윤달 여부를 판단하는 함수. 사용자한테 입력받은 두 값. 위의 두 값을 더해서 출력한다. 리스트에서 가장 작은 숫자를 출력하는 함수.
Cool. I will stop it right there just because I plan to only show y'all a minute of it. I'm going to check the comments just to make sure you could actually hear it. Could y'all tell me in the comments if you could hear it? I see people saying, what? That's amazing. The future is AI. Cool. So y'all heard it. Someone shared that with me and I thought it was awesome. Of course, like that person gets the credit for developing that extension that can use voice assistants, but I thought it was amazing. Because yeah, it will help so many people who speak English as a second language. Like coding's already hard. Now we have to remember like how to type all of this out. So let me get back to the slide deck. I hope y'all are all excited about this. Cool. Pro tab. This is a way easier presentation in person because I don't have to switch between tabs, but whatever. Okay, so now Copilot for documentation. I want to give a disclaimer that you do have to use this at your own risk or your own discrepancy, because Copilot's not really made for or at least GitHub didn't really develop it for like regular natural language, more for code. So we cannot really control at the moment currently what results it gives you, but I just want to show this because I think I've seen a lot of amazing examples of people just having Copilot on while they're creating documentation and it actually benefiting them. So here, there's a silly one. It's actually really funny to me that a principal engineer at GitHub, him and his coworkers are typing up some on-call documentation, and here it says, so escalate this, escalate to one of the other rotations, or, and then it already knows to ping Mike McQuaid, which is him, which I thought was super funny. And then we have another one where Hayden Barnes, he's typing up documentation and he's writing the install building prerequisites, and he says on SUSE, and then already Copilot knows what commands should be run to be able to install it on SUSE. I don't have the context of what exactly he's building though. And then this one I thought was amazing, that Wasim, who is a developer advocate at Microsoft, admits that half of the documentation for the static web app CLI has been written using Copilot. So I hope those were good examples. I actually haven't personally used it for documentation, but every time I see people talk about Copilot on Twitter, it's always with documentation. I'm like, wow, it's amazing. Okay, so regarding being a better mentor and mentee, which is another goal of mine that I talked to y'all about, it really helps me to have confidence as a driver and mentee. Like when I'm pair programming with people, I'm normally really, really nervous. I know people like pair programming, but I will be vulnerable and say that I do learn a lot from it, but I'm normally shaking. Like I'm like shaking like a leaf because somebody's watching me, and now I'm like, if I make a mistake and type something wrong, they're gonna judge me, and then that leads to me typing everything wrong because I'm very focused on the syntax and not messing up, and I forget about thinking about the logic. Like I'm like, okay, make sure I do the fat arrow, and then people are like, so what do you think we should do next, Rizèl? And I'm like, I don't know. So for me, Copilot's been super helpful where I'm not focused on the syntax anymore because I know Copilot's going to help me out with that. Instead, I get to focus on the logic, and I get to show that I'm actually absorbing the knowledge that my mentor or the navigator is talking to me about, and we can move a little bit faster and be more productive. On the flip side, when I'm a mentor, right? I told you all, or I mentioned that I worked at an organization called G Code as a director of programming, and now I'm just an advisor, where we actually introduced women of color to code, right? And I normally introduce them to just the very basics, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Then we tell them about other programs where they can learn even more, and then they eventually go and get jobs. Sometimes they come back and they say, hey, I need help with C#. And I'm a Jamstack person. I don't know C#. So it's always a struggle to help to really understand what's even going on in the code. But using that Copilot Labs extension has really helped me in being able to translate and understand what's going on, and then be able to give my advice of how they can solve the problem. In terms of gaining context for new concepts, I think Copilot could be really cool for studying for interviews. Everybody learns and studies differently, but I think you can maybe reverse engineer or work backwards with some things. Sometimes when I'm going through LeetCode problems, I get stuck, right? Like, just being honest. Sometimes like I'm like on a roll, and then after that I'm like, oh, this one's hard, and all of a sudden I find myself watching Netflix or taking a nap instead of actually studying. I think Copilot can keep you moving, right? If you get stuck, you can open up Copilot and be like, how would Copilot solve this? And then you can delete it and try to challenge yourself to solve it on your own. Or you can also use the explanation tab in Copilot Labs to gain more context of what's going on and why Copilot solved it that way. I think that's really useful. Also, in navigating a new code base, whether you're new to an open source project or you're just new to a team, you can highlight that code snippet and get a little bit of an explanation of what's happening. And for me, it's been extremely helpful to gain new concepts or gain understanding for new concepts as a developer advocate. Oftentimes, like, I have a really short deadline of people wanting me to demo something, and I'm like, I don't even know how to use this. Copilot has been really helpful, and I will give you an example of that when I had to do that. Basically, the Twitter developer relations team told me, hey, I want to show off Copilot and Twitter API v2 on Twitch with you. And I was like, sure, let's do it. It's going to be so fun. And then they were like, oh, actually, it's going to be pretty soon. And we want you to use Tweepy, which is a Python library. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know Python. Like, it sounds scary. I know that Python is generally like an easy to read language, but it's still a little bit scary of having to demonstrate yourself typing in a language that you never typed in before in front of multiple people and have it be recorded, right? So I was very nervous, but I turned on Copilot and I did like a practice demo beforehand. And to my surprise, within 30 minutes, I had a working demo. So that's just me celebrating on Twitter. I don't know if y'all remember that meme when Usher was like, watch this. Yeah, that's me just being excited that I was able to code in a new language. So we're gonna go ahead and do that together. Basically, the thing I demonstrated was writing a tweet or sending a tweet with Copilot to Twitter. So we're gonna go ahead and do that together. And I think it's 6:45, so I'll try to wrap up pretty quickly, but we're near the end. So let me stop sharing, and then I will share a different screen. And let's pray to the demo gods that I also don't mess up here either. So I'm going to open up this code space. And I'll make it's a little big. I made it big for y'all, but I think a little smaller would be okay. Let's see this code space open up. While we're talking, while we're waiting for this, I do want to specify the difference between a code space and GitHub's web editor, because I've seen a lot of people talk about, code spaces, and they showed me GitHub's web editor. So let me just show y'all really quick. Basically, let's say I have a repo, GitHub's web editor. If I press the dot button, like the period dot button, or if I say, yeah, let's just do that, right? If I open up that's GitHub's web editor, which lets you like edit files inside of here. But so like I can do that, and then I can push the code with this little source control panel. But there's no terminal. There's no terminal here, so I can't run code or anything. But and I don't know if y'all can see it. I don't think you can. But this doesn't matter. With Copilot, with Code Spaces, you do have a terminal that you can actually open up and run code in. Sorry, struggling with this sharing. Let me share again. Do I use Copilot, Code Spaces? Don't know if you're talking to me, but yes, I do. Yes, I don't even, I have zero setup in my actual like local environment. Like on my computer, like there's no terminal, nothing. I barely open up Visual Studio Code. I just use Code Spaces. Okay, so let's get this started. We're going to write some Python to send a tweet with Copilot. So first I'm going to write, these are just for examples. In real life, I probably wouldn't write this many comments, but let's say I want to say import the Tweepy library. It already started finishing the comment for me, and it knows I want to import Tweepy. Now I have it wants me to import the time library. That's not what I want. But I do have some what's it called, access tokens and passwords in this config.py. So what I'm going to do is import that file too. So import the config file, and let's see it happen. Import config. And then let's say I want to, okay, it's cool. It knows that I want to create an authentication object. What's going to happen here is because there's a larger sample size for Twitter API v1 and I'm using v2, we may see some incorrect suggestions, but that can help us just to see the reality of what happened. So I'm going to say I want to create a client with Tweepy.client, try to get it to be a little bit closer, not the OAuth handler, Tweepy.client with consumer key and secret key. Let's see what happens. Perfect. It did it. This is actually, y'all, the first time that it's done it for me. And I did not install, this reminds me, I didn't install Tweepy. So I'm going to do pip3 install Tweepy. Let's see the time. Cool. Hopefully this works. If this demo doesn't work, the good thing is y'all saw how Copilot works. And what's the problem here is it's actually uppercase, consumer key. Let me double check. I think this is consumer secret key. But it got me really close, y'all. Secret key, and change this to access token. And access token secret. I just want this uppercase. Access token secret. Perfect. All right, so these exist now. Next, we want to, what do I want to do? I want to create a variable or create a tweet. Let's see what it gives us. Cool. This is actually Twitter API v1 suggestion. Not exactly what I want, but if we open up GitHub Copilot, we can see all the suggestions it could have possibly given us. And it's still leaning on the Twitter API v1. So I'm going to go ahead and write my own. First, actually, I'm going to create a variable instead. That may help it out a little bit more. Create a variable called tweet, and with a string. Okay, cool. Assign it to a string that says, hey, I'm at software. What's it called? Cincinnati. I could spell it. Software crafts. Oh, not airport. Software craftsmanship. Okay, cool. I think it actually wrote that for me. Wow. It wrote the MEETUP part. How did it know? Cool. Let's see it happen. There we go. We created a variable that says that. I might have spelled Cincinnati wrong. Let's ignore it. And then let's go ahead and press send. Do send tweet. I think it'll still use the old one. Yeah, it did. So I'm going to type it myself. Client dot create tweet. And then we're going to do, I think it's text equals tweet. Cool. Oh, wait, cool. Nothing's wrong. And then we're going to print the tweet out. Print tweet. If this doesn't work, it's because my environment variables are wrong. I don't remember if I updated them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do Python 3. I'm going to run send tweet dot py. Let's see what happens. And it did fail because I have the wrong values in there. But I can show you all a different way instead. I already have my backup plan. And so I'll give you all context before I do the backup plan. Here is the context, and I'm trying to rush because I know there's 10 minutes left. Let me just share my entire window so we don't have to go back and forth. But so I was able in the past, when I had the right authentication keys and stuff like that, I was able to actually send a tweet with Copilot and people thought it was cool, right? But I was like, how is this even like practical? I always like to think of like how to make things practical. And I thought, what if open source maintainers used it to tweet every time they labeled an issue a good first issue? Because that's really hard for people, newcomers getting into open source. They're like, hey, I want to have a good first issue. I don't know where to find it. Helping increase that discoverability is helpful, right? And basically I made a little ad hoc GitHub action that will run that file that I just showed y'all. And I'll show you the GitHub action. And it looks for every time, and I'll zoom in a little bit. It looks for every time an issue is labeled good first issue. It'll grab the actual issue that the event happened on, and then it'll run these values. So hopefully, let's cross our fingers that it's using the right authentication keys. Hopefully this will work. So I'm gonna go ahead, and you all can see that I have multiple of these, and I'm gonna create a new issue, and I'm just gonna, I don't know, fill in random stuff. Or maybe, yeah. Maybe I should say that I'm at Software Craftsmanship Meetup. I cannot spell, so I also need Copilot. And I'll say this is a feature. This is a issue form, by the way, if no one's ever seen it. And I can't forget the most important part, which is to label it good first issue. So cross your fingers for it to work. If it doesn't, y'all got the idea that Copilot is cool. Let's see. So the action, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the action logs right now. I went to the actions tab, and it's going to run all of these different things. So first it's checking out my code, then it installed Tweepy, then, oh, everything's basically done. It ran the file that we wrote, and let's go ahead and see if it's actually on my profile. There it is. So I said, this is a good first issue. And here I have its the name of the issue, which is at Software Craftsmanship Meetup. Let's go back to my slides. Basically done right now. And here I actually show the tweet action and the results. And basically, I believe I have proven that you can send tweets with Copilot, except I do need to change my API keys. And then also, I do think that it can help you level up your career. And I'm super, super excited to chat with y'all and answer any questions and comments you have. I'll share my slides with you all later, and you all can connect with me. I think the easiest way is to find me on Twitter at BlackGirlBytes. And I want to thank this meetup organization for letting me speak and talk about Copilot. And thanks y'all also for dealing with me switching back and forth between tabs and sharing, and sometimes not even sharing the right tab. So thanks.
It's all good. Thank you, Rizèl. That was really nice. Thank you. That was super cool. Really impressive. Can we get some applause in the chat again for Rizèl?